What's happening, everybody? Dan with Hangar 88, and tonight we're going to be setting up a timer that would be engaged with the gear switch and then stopped and reset using the trim switch. Now, this is something that's useful for turbine pilots. Disclaimer, I myself am not a turbine pilot, nor have I ever flown a turbine, but just recently, a couple months back at a local event, a young pilot who was brand new to FrSky, and his father approached me at the booth to ask about, how to solve this problem they were having with them forgetting to reset the timer, and then getting into subsequent flights, and then remembering the timer, and then not knowing how much time they had, yada yada yada. So we developed a little system with some logical switches that ended up working for them. And then just recently, I had someone reach out to me and ask me if I'd make a video on that same setup. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's get into it. The first thing we're going to want to do is go into our model menu. And I already have these logical switches set up because it took me a minute to figure it back out. But the first logical, well, what you're going to want to do is at the top of the screen is create a logical switch. And once we get into it, I just named this one TMR on, timer on. For function, you're going to want to select sticky, which should be the second to the last option. And essentially what that does is, once you have this logical switch activated, it sticks to that open position until something triggers it off. For instance, you could have this timer on a momentary switch where you depress it upwards and then it springs back down and it starts the timer, and then it'll continue running until you have a trigger off position. So for the trigger on condition, we're going to have our landing gear up. So in our case, that's landing gear up is going to be SA down. And that can vary on your system. This is my forever landing gear switch there. So, and then for the trigger off condition is another logical switch that we're going to create right now. So for right now, we'll leave that blank and we'll come back to it. Active condition, always on, and then everything else is normal. We don't have to do any delays or anything like that. Let's see. So we're going to back up here, and now we're going to excuse me. We're going to go ahead and create another logical switch there. And we'll get into that one. We'll edit it. And I name this one timer reset. And then we're going to go A equals X. So when A equals X, this logical switch will activate. So for our source here, we're going to go into the category of trims. And then in the trim, under the member category, we're going to go to the throttle trim, or trim throttle. So trim throttle there, that's going to be our source. So when our trim throttle is at -100, the timer is going to stop and reset. So from my understanding is the idle up and idle down for turbines is used on a trim switch, and -100 being turning down or turning off the turbine, shutting it down. So -100 there. Active condition, always on again, and then again no delays or minute durations and no comments. So those are the only two that we're going to create. Now we need to go back to the logical switch 3, the timer on that we created, and under the trigger off condition, we're going to click into that. We're going to find logical switches, click into that, and then we're going to go into the member list, And we're going to find our timer reset, which was our logical switch 4. All right, now that's there, and then everything else stays the same. And now we can go back all the way out to the model menus page. We'll go to timers, and we'll go ahead and edit timer 1. And we'll just put turb for turbine. Okay, and then mode, we're going to want it to be a countdown or up count if that's what you guys want there. And this, we'll just put it at 10 minutes. Okay, and for sound, that's subjective, whatever you want. No sound, a beep. I like the speech. I like my haptic on. Those are the little vibrations. The countdown. Oops. I'd like my countdown to start at 10 seconds. And again, this is something that's going to be up to you. You may want a 1 minute countdown. You may want a 30-second countdown, whatever. So 10 seconds for the countdown there. And then the countdown step, I want my time to be read out every 60 seconds. You can come in and put an audio file for the timer once it's finished and it's elapsed. Okay, active condition. We're going to find logical switches. And then we're going to go over into the logical switch member, and we're going to look for timer on. And then for the reset, same thing. In the logical switches, we're going to find timer reset. And I leave persistent off. So now we back all the way out to the home screen. You'll see that my timer up here is reading 10. And as soon as I throw my gear down, and also this is my test airplane where I test a bunch of mixes and Lewis scripts and stuff. So I have some other things on there. I have some special functions that read out an audio for high idle. So you'll hear that right now when I drop or when I retract my gear. It may say high idle. So just disregard that. It has nothing to do with this video. So once we retract the gear, idle up, you'll see that our timer starts. Now, if I was to come and do a low dirty pass, gear down, timer is still going. Okay, so timer's still going, or I'm coming in for landing. Timer's still going. Once I come here and I've landed and I'm shutting down this turbine. Pretty close. 95. Then reached. And it resets. Now again, the request that I had was they wanted the timer to start when the gear was retracted after takeoff. Due to them having taxi tanks and whatnot, they weren't really counting the time there. And all this was for their flight time, not so much turbine time, because that's recorded in another means. So now once they've spooled up and they taxi out and they lift off, gear up, idle up, gear up, and your timer goes. So that's basically it. We'll go back and do a little bit of a rundown. Gear down. We're going to want to go to logical switches, and we're going to create a logical switch here and timer on. Sticky would be the action. Get back into it real quick. So the function is sticky. Trigger was the gear up switch, which in this case was SA down. Remember, trigger off condition, you're going to have to create that second logical switch, or in my case, that was the fourth one in the list. Okay, so we'll get to that, and then everything else stayed the same. We went back and created logical switch 4. This one, when A equals X, so when the throttle trim equals -100, the timer would stop and reset. Active condition, always on. Everything else stayed the same. Go back into the previous logical switch that you created, and you're going to do the trigger off condition, and you're going to input that logical switch that you just created for the timer reset, and nothing else. And back out, and then we're going to go to timers. We're going to edit, name your timer, whether or not you want it up or down, the time value that you want in there, whether or not you want a mute, beep, or switch, or a speech, haptic feedback, that's again up to you. Countdown, this is when the timer will vote, there will be an audio counting down whatever you input here. So 10 seconds. This pretty young lady on the radio is going to be counting out 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, so on and so forth. Countdown step is set for 60 seconds. Again, subjective, whatever you want. Every minute that goes by, she's going to tell me where I'm at. 9 minutes, 8 minutes, so on and so forth. No, I didn't put the timer lapsed audio file. You can. And active condition, that first logical switch we created, which was timer on, and then the reset was the second logical switch that we created, which was called timer reset. Okay, so there are 30 different ways to do everything in FrSky. And they're called logical switches because if it's logical, you could probably do it. So if you guys have any other ways of doing it, maybe a little bit easier of a way, feel free to leave a comment or another post or create another video. You know, the more information we get out there, the better. And what works for some doesn't really jive with others, and that's okay. Again, this was something that I created on the fly at an event for a guy, and it worked out for them, and they really liked it. And then again, I had a second request for it to make this video. So again, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comment, or concerns, please feel free to leave a comment or down in the comment section. Let me know. And if you like what you've seen here, hit that like button and consider subscribing. Thank you.